Hello everyone, good evening, happy Sunday. I am Meghana, volunteer of Women Astronomy Club. I welcome you all to this episode 2 of Women Astronomy Club. So before I begin, let me tell you about our team, our club. So Himalayan Space Center is doing a wonderful job by spreading knowledge on astronomy, space science, rocketry, astronaut training, and many more activities. And my journey started towards space when I attended 5 days camp of Himalayan Space Center, that is Young Astronaut Program. And my vision towards my goal and interest in space extended so much after I joined Young Astronaut Program. So our trainer sir is Afro sir. He's really best. Sridevi ma'am and Veeresh sir are so supportive and encouraging. Okay, now Women Astronomy Club. Women Astronomy Club is part of Himalayan Space Center, which aims to spread knowledge in rural areas about space and astronomy. And their aim is to bring up girls and space enthusiasts to grow up in this field. It's just like women in space, girls in space, like that. Okay, and you also might have heard about Astrospace Masterclasses. This is amazing platform for kids to learn about astronomy and space science. I really thank our mentor, Usha Kulkarni ma'am. She's really the best teacher, and she guides us in the right way to gain knowledge. And she has worked in Dharwad Space Research Center, Dharwad Science Research Center for nearly 30 years. And I thank Sridevi ma'am and Veeresh sir for giving me this wonderful opportunity. Okay, so let's get started with our topic. I'm passionate observer. I love nature so much and I keep observing things around me. I love watching flowers, plants, sky, animals
Hello
feeding.
everyone, I am Anagha Eskarnes. I am a student of Himalayan Space Center Masterclass. I'm sure Akka would like to say something about the classes now.
Yeah, Anagha. Let me tell about our Astrospace Masterclass first. So it has two groups from age 9 to 13. They're called as Moon Rockers. And from 13 to 18, they're called as Star Hoppers. So in today's session, we have kids space enthusiasts from Star Hoppers. And we are going to have a talk about from geocentric theory to heliocentric theory. So what was I telling? Yeah, I was telling that I'm a passionate observer and I keep observing things around me. I love nature. Like I love watching birds flying around me and sun moving around me. Wait, what did I say? Sun moving around me? Sorry. We are revolving around sun, right? Sun is not moving around me. But through our naked eye observation, and unless and until I studied about solar system in my primary class, I was in belief that all the celestial objects seen in the sky are moving around us. And this topic is really very interesting. And I have so many doubts and so many questions running in my mind right now on this topic. So I know even you also have the same you also might have the same questions, but I'm not at all worried now because I have two amazing space enthusiasts with me who are going to answer all my questions. So it's time to introduce them. So this is Anagha. Hey Anagha.
Hello Akka.
Hello. And she's from grade 9. She's from Star Hopper team. And this is Vansh. Hey Vansh. Hello. So Vansh is from grade 7 and he's also from Star Hopper team. So, okay, I cannot stop myself from knowing the topic from geocentric theory to heliocentric theory. Okay, Anaka, tell me, what is the meaning of geocentric theory and heliocentric theory?
Sure Akka. So, geocentric theory and heliocentric theory, both of these are models which were proposed by astronomers and scientists to understand the working of the universe. In geocentric theory, it was said that Sun is in the middle of the solar system and the universe, and all the other celestial objects moved around the Earth. Whereas in heliocentric theory, it was said that Sun is in the middle of the solar system and all the other 8 planets revolve around the Sun.
Yes, Anaga. What you're telling is absolutely right. When all other celestial objects are moving around us, it's an observational fact that Earth is at center. But who was the one who came up with this heliocentric theory and on what basis? Once, can you tell me?
Yes, Akka. So Aristocrates, one of Plato's disciples, violated this rule and developed a model with the sun at his center. So his model was obviously not accepted because of the obvious observations against the moving Earth. But he thought that the sun is bigger than the Earth, and obviously the smaller body should be revolving around the bigger body, and not vice versa. So he put sun at the center of his model, and he named his model the heliocentric model.
This also seems to be correct. But how this theory was denied?
Yes, Akka. So Aristotle, one of a famous Greek philosopher, had made these observations. He observed that Earth is not a part of the heavens. Heavens, I mean sky. So we know this is wrong, as Earth is known to be just one planet of the 8 and that orbit an average star in the outskirts of a large galaxy. But this idea gained acceptance only recently when telescopes extended our vision. The other thing is that Greeks saw little change in the heavens. The stars are same night after night. They thought that the stars are immortal. But we know this is wrong, as stars soon die and are born. Some die quite spectacularly. They also knew that the Earth was not spinning, because things can be flung off from an object that is spinning rapidly. The observation that rocks, trees, peoples are not hurled off from the Earth proved that the Earth was not spinning. And the Earth was not moving because when they threw a stone up, it landed on the same place. But if the Earth was moving, it should have landed behind.
This is interesting. So there must be some purpose for all these observations, philosophy, and interest of people to know about the motion of celestial objects. Anagha, I have heard about Ptolemy, a navigator, a geographer, astronomer, and very good mathematician who wrote Almagesta, where people considered this as Bible in 13th century. Can you tell me about him?
Sure, Akka. Before I tell about Ptolemy, I would like to answer your first question. Why was all this interest in space? So at that time, people didn't know how exactly these celestial bodies influenced our life. But what they did know was somehow or the other, their motion and their positions influenced our life and they had certain impact on our life. So hence they needed some guidelines to lead an easy life and to plan their future activities. So all of them wanted to observe space and the motion of these celestial bodies accurately. Now coming to Ptolemy. As you said, he was a great astronomer and a navigator. He combined the best points of the geocentric theory and took the most accurate observations of that time, and he created a calculation device. Through this calculation device, he was able to calculate the motion and he was able to predict the positions of various bodies at certain points. So, how was this calculation device working? He told that Earth was not the true center of the universe. Instead, he said that true center was some point else. He also said that there was a circle around this true center called as the different. This different was the path of all the celestial bodies, and all the celestial bodies moved on this different only. He said that Earth and another point called equant were equidistant from this point called as the true center. all the planets. And here by planets, I also include the sun because at that time, sun was not known to be a star. Okay? So all the planets revolved on the different. The planets had their orbit of their own. That was called as the epicycle. So epicycle also had a center of its own called as the center of epicycle. He said that the epicycle and center of epicycle had their own independent motions. The epicycle moved counterclockwise on the different, whereas the center of epicycle moved clockwise on the different. So he also said that whenever these two motions collide, the planet undergoes retrograde motion. So retrograde motion is the motion of the planets wherein it seems to stop for a while, moves back and then continues forward. So like this, he also solved the problem of the retrograde motion and gave the most effective calculation device available at that time.
Okay, this is so interesting. I was not knowing about this. Thanks for sharing, Anagha. Okay, then when everything was going perfect, when everything was going well, what was necessary to put forth this heliocentric theory again?
Yes, Akka. So what happened was that when the Arabian trade between Arabia and Europe was very necessary, and they had to travel through the desert, the stars were their only mean of navigation. So all the travelers used Ptolemy's Almagesta to navigate. So one time, Nicholas Copernicus, who was a priest, found many deficiencies in the Ptolemaic model. He thought that any model of the planet must account for the observations and have a circular and uniform motion. So he made a book called The Revolutionary Bus, and he put all his thoughts into that. Copernicus was also strongly influenced by Neoplatonism. The Neoplatonism is the belief of combined elements of Christianity and Platonism. So this belief led him to believe that sun is a material copy of God. God is a creative force sustaining life, and sun gives us warmth and light. He adopted Aristocrates' heliocentric, which is the sun-centered model, because he felt that God should be at the center of the universe. Now, even though Copernicus' model was as accurate as Ptolemy's, his was much more elegant and easy to understand. Copernicus retained the Aristotelian notion that planets fulfill the goal of perfect or circular motion. His model still used small epicycles to get details of retrograde loops correct, but this was just a minor feature. He also used trigonometry to describe the distances of the planet from the sun relative to the astronomical unit. But he did not know the numerical value of the astronomical unit, which we now know as the Earth-Sun distance, but he knew it existed. And if the Earth was moving around the sun, then the stars should appear to shift due to our looking at them from different vantage points in our orbit. He called this a parallaxic shift. Now imagine that Earth at opposite ends is your left and right eye, and nearby star is your thumb. But using this imagination, no parallaxic shift was observed in the stars. We now know this because the stars are very, very far away, and there was a parallaxic shift, but it was too small to measure, and even now we measure it with very powerful telescopes.
Okay, so did any other observations, calculations matched with this Copernicus heliocentric theory? Anagha, can you tell me about this?
Yes, Saka. There is one concept called as angle of elongation, which supports Copernicus heliocentric theory. So first, we need to understand what is angle of elongation. First of all, we have to consider a planet apart from Earth, and we have to keep Sun as the center of the solar system. And now, considering all these objects as points, we draw two lines, one from Earth to Sun and another from Earth to the considered planet. So the inclination between these two lines is called as the angle of elongation. So there are two important concepts in angle of elongation. One is called as conjunction and another is called as opposition. So conjunction is when the angle of elongation is 0 degree, and opposition is when the angle of elongation is 180 degree. That is, the considered planet and the Earth will appear on opposite sides of the Sun in angle of opposition. We also need to keep in mind that angle of opposition does not occur in inferior planets, because their orbits are shorter than that of Earth. So in inferior planets, opposition does not occur.
Wow, Anaga, these concepts are mind blowing. So, are these all taught to you in Astrospace Masterclass? Would you like to tell something about it, about your class?
Yes, Saka, all these are actually taught to us in the Astrospace Masterclass only. And it is, I would like to say, great opportunity to learn something about space. And it is not every day that we get such opportunities, because such things are not given much importance in our school curriculum too. So we are able to understand such things at such a young age. So I would like to thank Usha ma'am for teaching us all this, and also Rugi ma'am and Veeresh sir for arranging these classes and giving us an opportunity to learn about space.
Yes, Akka, even
Do you
I
want
would
to
like to
share?
add
Yes.
that like even words will be very less how to describe. I don't know how to describe these classes actually. Like they are so Usha Kulkarni ma'am, our teacher, is so supportive, and she makes us understand topics very easily, and even if we have a doubt, she explains us without getting angry.
That's nice. So, moving on, I have heard about a person, who has spent his entire youth in observing sky, nearly like 22 to 25 years. I guess his name is Tycho Brahe. Can you tell me about him?
Sure, Akka. Tycho Brahe was one of the most accurate observational astronomers. He calculated the motion of the planets, and whatever values he got is very, very near to the values what we have today. He also mathematically calculated the motion of all the planets, but he did not go against the existing theory. Mathematically, his model was very similar to Copernicus' heliocentric theory. But when he proposed his theory in writing, he did not go against the existing theory of Earth being the center. These beliefs did not have much of an effect on his assistants, but one of his assistants, called Johannes Kepler, he used these values and he gave some points which can be considered as milestone in the history of astronomy. So he said, Johannes Kepler, he said that the orbit of the planet around the sun was not circular, but it was an ellipse. Till now, all the astronomers had considered that the path of the planet around the true center, whether it is Earth or the Sun, is a perfect circle. But Kepler said that it is not a circle, but instead it is an ellipse. So why did he say that it is an ellipse? He observed that at certain points the planet took more time to cover the same distance, whereas in some other points to cover the same distance it took less time. So if it had been a perfect circle, obviously it would have taken the same time all over its path, but it did not. So he concluded that the path was not circular. He then told us the properties of this ellipse. He told that the aerial velocity of the planet remains the same. So what is this aerial velocity? Area covered per a certain given unit of time remains the same throughout the shape. For example, if we consider time t, then on each and every point, the area covered by the planet will remain same. So this was a major milestone in the history because it pushed our understanding further.
contribution is really incredible. So, having all these observations, who was the one who gave practical proof to this heliocentric theory?
Yes, Akka. So, father of modern astronomy, none other than infamous Galileo Galilei, who's the one who gave the observational proof for this heliocentric theory. He invented a telescope which he called his superior eye, and he discovered four moons orbiting Jupiter. These four moons, Io, Europa, Ganymede, and Callisto, are called the Galilean satellites in his honor. In this system, Galileo saw a mini model of the heliocentric system. The moons are not moving around the Earth, but are centered on Jupiter. Perhaps other objects, including the planets, do not move around the Earth. He also made the important discovery that Venus goes through a complete set of phases. The gibbous and full phases of Venus are impossible in the Ptolemaic model, but possible in the Copernican model. In the Ptolemaic model, Venus was approximately between us and the Sun and was never found further away from the Earth than the Sun. Because of this geometry, Venus should always be in a crescent, new, or quarter phase. The only way to arrange Venus to make it a gibbous or full phase is to have it orbiting the Sun, so that with our respect to our viewpoint, Venus could get on the other side or behind the Sun, farther away from us than the Sun. This was possible only if Venus orbited the Sun.
Okay. So, people won't believe unless and until they get mathematical proof, right? Then who proved this theory mathematically? I guess the person who proved this theory mathematically is very, very genius. Who is that genius? Can you tell me?
Yes, Akka, you're right. This genius is none other than Sir Isaac Newton. So, Sir Isaac Newton, when heliocentric theory was a very hot topic, he thought that he should give some mathematical proof for it. So, while answering the question that if the apple falls, does the moon also fall, Newton was able to state the law of universal gravitation. So, he stated that every particle of matter attracts every other particle with a force proportional to the product of the masses of the two particles and inversely proportional to the square of the distance between them. Now, this law is very complicated to understand, but in simple terms, it is the gravitational attraction between two bodies that decreases rapidly as the distance between them increases. So, Newton understood gravity as a universal property of all bodies. Its force depended only on the amount of matter contained in each body. Everything from apples to planets obeys the same unchanging laws. By combining physics, mathematics, and astronomy, Newton made a giant leap in human understanding of the Earth and the cosmos.
So my doubts are really clear for how this theory evolved from geocentric theory to heliocentric theory. Okay, but throughout the session, you took the word retrograde motion. What is that retrograde motion? Can you tell me?
Sure, Akka. I'd like to answer this question. So, first thing we need to keep in mind is retrograde motion is not an absolute motion. That is, it actually does not occur when planets are revolve around the sun. But from our naked eye and through our sky observations, we find this apparent motion. So, why does this occur? First of all, we can consider it as two different parts: retrograde motion of the inferior planets and retrograde motion of the superior planets. So, inferior planets, that is, the planets which have orbits shorter than that of Earth, they are Mercury and Venus. They orbit around the sun much faster than Earth. So, when they overtake the Earth, they seem to stop and slow down a bit, and then we feel that they move backward before they continue. So, this is with respect to the background stars. So, when we observe Mercury or Venus moving in the sky, with respect to the background stars, we feel that it moves backward and then continues its journey forward. Whereas in the case of superior planets, their orbits are much longer than that of Earth. So Earth moves faster than those planets. So whenever Earth overtakes these planets, we feel that these planets first move backward and then continue their motion forward. So this can be easily related to a daily life situation. For example, we are on a road and the car in front of us is traveling slower than us. So when we overtake that car, for some time we feel that the car moves backward and then it moves forward towards us. So it's the same thing that happens with the superior planets too. I hope it's clear now.
Yeah, it's completely clear. Thank you so much for sharing such amazing concepts. So, okay, then here we'll end the session. Do you have any doubts? And Women Astronomy Club page we have on Facebook as well as on LinkedIn. If you want to join us, please contact us please follow us on our Facebook page, and you can contact us there. We'll respond you, and also on LinkedIn page. I'll share you the Facebook link over here. You can join. You can have a look over it. And so I would like to conclude this session by saying that, see, whatever we see around us is not true, and whatever we are seeing it's just apparent motion, right? And the discovery of heliocentric theory led to a great change in human life, because we could form a proper calendar, and once the proper calendar was formed, we had a disciplined way of life, and we found out that sun is our star. And through this we could also learn about other stars of the universe, and we could also extend our knowledge uh, to galaxies, planets, and other parts of universe. So yeah, and also the main thing was we could differentiate astrology and astronomy. Astrology is something that is unscientific false science, and astronomy is completely different, where in that time people had a wrong belief between these two topics, right? Okay, do you all have any questions on this topic or anything you want to ask us? Please feel free to, you can unmute yourself and ask, or you can also put it in the chat box.
Vansh and
Any
Anaga, you
doubts?
want to talk about your school, which place you belong to? Covered already? Okay, good. Any questions? Shamit, Tanay, you guys want to add in anything? How did astronomers say that stars had their own systems and did not revolve around the sun?
Okay, I think you guys can handle this. Anaga and
Hello
Vansh.
everyone. So, how did astronomers say that stars had their own systems and did not revolve around the sun? So, by the time people actually found out about star systems, Newton had proved gravity. So, gravitational force, everybody knew that it existed and how exactly it worked. So, they could say that it did not revolve around the sun because of their mass and distance between them. So, as Vansh earlier told us, gravity decreases when the distance between them, between any two objects, increases. So, when the stars are farther apart, or one star is much larger than the other, we can say that the smaller star revolves around the larger star. And after this, telescopes had also become very advanced, so we could actually calculate accurately the mass and distances between the stars. So we could hence say that everything did not revolve around the sun and the stars had their own systems.
That's nice explanation, Anaga. Hope your doubt is clear, Shamit. Any other questions? Please feel free to ask. And I've posted our Facebook Women Astronomy Club link. You can go through it. And do follow us on Facebook and LinkedIn.
Awesome, guys. I think worth the time. Thank you so much on a Sunday evening for all of you guys making out time, especially Meghna, Vansh, and Anaga. Superb inputs. Appreciate your knowledge sharing. Stay tuned. We will have our next episode coming in a couple of weeks. We will have many more star hoppers and moon rockers coming on and sharing their knowledge. Enjoy your rest of the day. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Bye.